It all started on the planet Eridanus V, where the crew of the Helios terraform colony first discovered mysterious underground structures. No one knew who built them until it was too late. On the 43rd day of an archaeological expedition, Ray Danvers activated something that had been dormant underground for millions of years. From the sand rose machines, not just technology but living forms. They are called Xi, a race of synthetic beings created before the beginning of time. Their first message was the shortest. "You have broken the silence. Now you must shut up." 48 hours later, Helios was working on signals. 7 days later, 3 more colonies had disappeared. When the reconnaissance ship returned, it brought back only one file: a distorted image of the devoted monolith hovering above the city, and a voice repeating, "We are the echo of the first. You are a mistake." In response to the action, the Earth Alliance was created, an emergency military command that supported all nations. The First Galactic War began. Humans fought fiercely, but the Xi did more than destroy worlds. They made them disappear. Technologies that surpassed electrons for millennia, armies that knew no fear, intelligence that knew no mercy. But there was me, who said that the Xi were not enemies, that they were guardians of something older, that the bottom of the galaxy didn't care what no mind should awaken. Chapter the 3rd. Requiem for the Impossible. Commander Leia Rayne, an ace pilot of the Orion Orbital Fortress, becomes a key figure in the conflict. She survived the Battle of Tau Ceti, losing her entire crew, and now leads a mission of last resort to find an artifact mentioned in the ancient language of Xi, the Song of Return. With her is a crew of Martians, an android with light consciousness, and a xenolinguist who claims to have heard Xi in a dream. Their goal is not to defeat, but to understand. Find out why Xi considers you a threat, and what really spit in the black core of the galaxy. The ship Aegis, covered with scars of the recent street, rushed through hyperspace in the direction of Sector Z3. There, according to the decrypted signal of Xi, they found a place called in their language, Womb of Silence. Commander Leia Rayne stood on the bridge, looking at the shoulder of the fading light beyond the viewport. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from memory. "How much is left?" she asked the pilot. 3 hours until jump exit. After that, silence, the android Tal replied. His voice was all too human, but his eyes were eerily empty. "Something's waiting there," whispered linguist Lian and Ka, sitting in the refrigerator with his notebooks cramped. "I heard them again, last night. They're singing." "You said they couldn't sing," Leia objected. "A song is not a sound, it is a will, a vibration essentially. They sing when someone dies, or is born." Sector Z3 was a dead zone. No signals, no star data, just one ancient beacon orbiting a planet with no name. When the Aegis came out of the jump, half the systems instantly shut down. Not an attack, just silence. It was as if the space here refused to acknowledge their existence. "What is this place?" Leia breathed out. On the surface they found a temple, not a building but something alive, growing out of the rock itself, as if the planet itself was trying to speak. And in the center, an artifact. A metal sphere surrounded by rings on which were whispered words that defied translation. But Lian knew what they meant. The stars gave birth to the word. People forgot it. We are the keepers of silence. Tal extended his hand and the entire space contracted. The sphere opened, revealing its core, a crystal, shimmering with the rhythm of a heart. And then they heard the voice. Not a sound, but a feeling. He spoke to everyone in their language. He showed the beginning, how the Xi were created by the ancients, not as weapons, but as guardians of the sign that sealed something in the core of the galaxy. And now that humans have begun to break the seals, the Xi have awakened. Their mission is not to destroy, but to warn. "Did we wake it up?" Leia asked. "It's already awakening," Lian replied. "And not because of us. It always awakens, when someone forgets." 3 days later, the Aegis left the Maw of Silence. But they were not alone. A fleet emerged from behind the planet. Not Xi, not human. A new player had entered the war, and its ships were not made of metal, but of the darkness that warps the stars. On their sides is a sign, a circle crossed by a spiral, a symbol that has only been seen in ancient texts buried beneath the Xi base. The name that cannot be spoken. He is the end of the word. He is faceless. And now Leia has only one path, to form an alliance with Xi, or to disappear, as civilizations have disappeared before her. Leia stood at the view screen, watching the alien fleet approach. Space itself flexed around the ships, as if refusing to accept them into its fabric. The silence on the bridge was oppressive, almost physical. Even Tal, the neural matrix android, froze, as if he had lost all logic. "It's not Xi," Leon said, his voice shaking. "And it's not people. It's emptiness that wants to be form. He has come." For a moment, everything was gone. Not just the light, but reality. Leia felt her mind being stretched, like someone was digging through her memories, ripping out pages of her life to read at random. Visions flashed. Earth on fire. Mars torn in half. And then a voice. Neither male nor female. Neither voice nor sound. It just was. "You don't know what you're guarding. You're building walls around a grave. But the dead aren't always obedient." The next moment, everything came back. The Aegis hung in space, and the ships of darkness stopped, as if they were waiting. "He wants us to open the sphere," Leon whispered. "What we found in the maw, it's not an artifact, it's a key, the last one." Leia gritted her teeth. She remembered the Xi saying, "You are a mistake." But now she felt differently. Humans were not a mistake. They were a crack. And through that crack, Faceless was about to enter. "We will not give him up," she said firmly. "Not to Xi, not to the darkness." Tal turned to face her, his eyes glowing blue, but there was a spark of something new in them. Fear. "If we don't give, he will take. We are just a delay." Leia looked at Liana. "Tell me honestly, do we have a chance?" "No," he replied, "but we have a choice." She approached the sphere, still stored in its protected compartment. The metal trembled as if it sensed something primordial approaching. Leia extended her hand. "Then do what those who came to us did not do. You are not sure about the pregnancy. We will not remain silent." Leia stood at the view screen, watching the alien fleet. Space flexed around the ships, openly refusing to accept them into its fabric. The silence on the bridge was oppressive, almost physical. Even Tal, the neural matrix android, froze as he spoke the logic of the morning. "It's not Xi," Leon said in a trembling voice. "And it's not people. It's emptiness that wants to be form. He has come." For a moment, everything was gone. Not just the light, but reality. Leia felt her mind being stretched, like someone was digging through her memories, ripping out pages of her life to read them randomly. Visions flashed, Earth on fire, Mars torn in half, and then a voice, neither male nor female, no voice, no sound, it just was. "You don't know what you're guarding. You're building a wall around graves, but the dead aren't always slavish." The next moment, everything came back. The Aegis hung in space and the ships of darkness stopped, while they waited. "He wants us to open the sphere," Leon whispered. "What we found in the maw, it's not an archive, it's a key, the last one." Leia gritted her teeth. She remembered Xi saying, "You are a mistake." But now she felt something different. The humans were not disappointed. They were a crack. And through that crack, Faceless was about to enter. "We will not give him up," she said firmly. "Not to Xi, not to the darkness." Tal turned to face her, his eyes glowing blue, but there was a spark of something new in them, fear. "If we don't give, he will take. We are just a delay." Leia looked at Liana. "Tell me honestly, do we have a chance?" "No," he replied, "but we have a choice." She approached the sphere, still stored in its protected compartment. The metal trembled as if it sensed something primordial approaching. Leia extended her hand. Then do what those who came to us did not do. You are not sure about the pregnancy. We will not remain silent. She placed her palm on the artifact. The sphere flared, and a wave impulse swept through the ship. At that very moment, all systems shut down, and a portal opened around the Aegis. Not a wormhole, not a hyperspace jump. This was something else. Time rings, the mechanism of the universe. And in that moment, Leia knew. This was not the end. This was an invitation, a chance to rewrite the word itself, but only if they survived whatever waited beyond the threshold. And the Aegis disappeared. All hope for the stars was carried away with it. There was no light inside the portal. There was no darkness. There was no time. She placed her palm on the artifact. The sphere flared, and a wave impulse swept through the ship. At that very moment, all systems shut down, and a portal opened around the Aegis. Not a wormhole, not a hyperspace jump. This was something else. Time rings, the mechanism of the universe. And in that moment, Leia knew this was not the end. This was an invitation, a chance to rewrite the word itself, but only if they survived whatever waited beyond the threshold. And the Aegis disappeared, taking with it all hope for the stars. There was no light inside the portal, no darkness, no time, only silence, but not calm, but alive, pulsating like the breath of a speaking titan. Leia felt something tearing apart the usual boundaries of perception. Skin, bones, thoughts, everything was open, everything heard. Tal didn't speak anymore. He was frozen in the projection, his mind shutting down. Leon was on her knees, clutching her head, her face twisted in pain or revelation. In this timeless place they were met not by images or forms but by words. They hung in the void, forming a meaning, elusive and eternal. In the beginning was the Word. It became itself. It became reason. A funnel opened up before them, and a city shimmered inside it. Not the architecture, but the idea of a city. Towers rising from light, streets lined with the sand of memory. Leia stepped forward, and each step echoed not in the air but in her past. With each step remembering what she wanted to forget. She walked, and with every step she saw, his mother crying in a Martian hospital. The first soldier to die under her command. The look of a child left on Eridanus during the evacuation. This place laid the memory of everything. This was the Song of Return, not an artifact, not a weapon, but the memory of the universe, a fragment of the primordial truth. There in the city center she saw him, faceless. He wasn't ugly, he wasn't beautiful, he just was. A human silhouette made of stardust and shadows, without features, without form. But in his design, everything came together, everything forgot itself. "You have entered the song," he said. "You seek an answer, but the answer will not give you victory." "I don't want to win," Leia replied. "I want to end this." "With what?" "With eternal war, with repetition, with destruction, with silence." Faceless moved. He didn't walk. He changed location. The universe bent under his steps. "Then tell me, what will you choose? Life, but with a lie, or the truth, but with an end?" Leia felt the crystal, the core, pulsate in her palm. The song responded to her choice, to her word. At that moment, everything hung, the entire war, all civilizations, even Zai. Everything depended on one thing, a human response. Leia looked up. "I will choose the word. Let it be pain, let it be truth, but I will tell it, and let everyone hear." And she spoke, not with her voice, not with her lips. She put her memory, her pain, her hope into the song. Name, first, forgotten, forbidden, or faceless disappeared. Didn't collapse, dissolved in this word. Because he was a shadow of silence. The name is his end. The portal collapsed. The Aegis emerged back into normal space, cracked and shaking. Systems began to beep. Tal came to himself. Leon was silent, but his eyes were full of tears. And on the air, for the first time in a long time, a signal sounded. Xai's voice, but not like an order, but like a song. The word is restored. Memory has returned. We are not enemies. We are guardians. Now you are too. People didn't win, but they changed, and that was important. Now a new era has begun, not of conquests, but of understanding. And somewhere in the depths of the universe, among the dead stars, for the first time in billions of years, it has become a little quieter, not from fear, and from peace. 20 years have passed since the return. People called this day differently: the end of the war, the song of the name, the fall of the faceless. But more often, simply the beginning. A new era in which the creature became not only a colonizer of the stars, but also ancient meanings that listened to centuries in the galactic silence. The planets destroyed in the First War were rebuilt using Xi technology. These beings no longer called humans errors. They called them those who remembered. The union that once seemed impossible became the source of a new civilization, the Concordat of remembrance. But for now it was fragile. Somewhere on the edge of the habitable zone, in the existing V-null, a station without a call sign appeared. It was not registered in any database, no Xi, no word. It just appeared, spinning in the void as if waiting for something. The first to notice her was the crew of the scientific vessel Verity, captained by Kayla Orr, Leia Rayne's granddaughter. Kayla grew up surrounded by legends of her grandmother's heroism, reading fragments of deciphered songs as a child. But in her earthly soul, she was always interested in the question, was it really over? As she flew closer to the station, she saw that its surface was covered in symbols, ancient, unfamiliar even to Xanami. But Kayla's heart sank when one of them recognized her. A circle crossed by a spiral, the symbol of the one who had been erased from the name, the symbol of the faceless. But it wasn't a challenge, it was a sign. The station was waiting for a failure to connect. It was waiting for a response. Inside, everything was deep and quiet. The scanners detected no energy or movement, but the air was fresh and the systems were active. A single terminal glowed on the central console. When Kayla touched it, a message appeared. You remember, do you know that? At that moment, fragments of alien memories flashed into her head. She saw stars dying in the blackness, branches of reality where people did not choose the word, where faceless remained, where the galaxy was organized into silence that became eternity. This station is an anchor, a surviving fragment of an alternative branch, a repository of failed futures. It was not created by Xi or people, but by those who stood on the other side of the word. So this isn't the end, Kayla said. And a voice, silent but familiar, responded. There is no end. There is only choice, and each chooser creates a new ring in the chain. Kayla returned to Verity without showing the camera what she had seen. She saved the coordinates of the station and locked them under a personal code, something she knew. If humanity ever forgot again, the station would remind her, and the choice will have to be made again. And in another place, where the light of the stars barely reaches, the entity that was once faceless watched. He was not destroyed. He was rewritten. The name that was characteristic of him, Leia, changed his essence. He was no longer darkness, but he was not light either. He was memory of the forgotten, and he waited to be called again, not to interfere, and to reach those who, as before, will stand on the border between silence and voice. It had been 2 months since Kayla Orr had discovered the station on the edge of the V-null sector. She hadn't shared the information with the Concordat, or Xi, or even her own team. There was too much about her that rang with a disturbing truth she couldn't yet process. At night, Kayla dreamed dreams that should not have happened. In her dreams, she walked the streets of the city of song, the same city where her grandmother had met Faceless. But now the city was destroyed. The towers lay in ashes and shadows crawled across the horizon, gathering into shape. A voice called to her. Memory is not eternal. Even the name can be forgotten. Even the truth can be rewritten. Waking up in a cold sweat, Kayla headed for her personal terminal. She had no doubt that the station was calling her again. She said Verity on the single-seat shuttle and returned to V Null. I met her at this station for a different reason. The doors that had been silent before now opened by themselves. The metal corridors shimmered. I responded to her steps as if the station itself remembered her. In the center, she saw something that had not been there before, a hall of mirrors where space curved. The reflections were not her face, but hundreds of others. Some were electric, others were not there at all. They all produced the same words. The word was spoken, but who remembered it? She came closer. A figure stepped out of the mirror in front of her, an exact copy of herself. But there was no humanity in the eyes of the reflection. They were dark as a vacuum. "You're not Kayla," she breathed. "I am you if you had chosen fear, if you had not followed grandmother's trail, if the song had been revealed for him." "Faceless is gone," she whispered. "Faceless is not being, it is absence. It returns every time someone refuses respect." Mirror Kayla extended her hand. A symbol flashed on her palm, the same crossed-out spiral. But this time, it was not dark, but light, like a sign that something had changed. "You came because the word is under threat again." The Xi became teachers, the humans became students. But the students do not listen for long. There are those who want to rewrite history, remove fear, redraw the truth, make the song more beautiful, without pain. "And without pain there will be no meaning," Kayla answered quietly. Her reflection. "Exactly. And you are the last one who can still remember the unadorned truth. If you disappear, the word will disappear." The station shook. A dull rumble sounded in the distance as if reality itself were shaking. Kayla knew. Someone would try to get here. Someone who wanted to erase the traces of the song. She walked out into the central hall. The terminal no longer simply flickered, it sent signals in all directions, waking up the sleepers. The word had become a weapon again, but not for an attack, for memory. Kayla activated the protocol her grandmother had left behind. The name embedded in the song resounded once more, and the station flared brightly, sending a pulse across the galaxy. On every planet, in every instance that had ever heard the song, memories were awakened. And among millions of souls, some began to cry, not understanding why. Some saw in a dream a city of light, and some heard their true voice for the first time behind the sound. The song has returned, and in the depths of the galaxy where he had once been a shadow, a point of light flared. Non-affirmation, not rebirth, understanding. Now Kayla knew. Her path was just beginning. She was not a soldier, nor a scientist. She had become what Leia had been, a keeper of the name. But her task was more difficult. What she knew now, there comes a time in every civilization when the truth seems too hard to bear, and then the darkness comes, not to devour, and to check, are you worthy of remembering? Kayla didn't leave the station right away. Her shuttle drifted near the outer entrance as she stood in the Hall of Reflections, shadows surrounding her. Each reflection a choice she hadn't made, a fear she hadn't stepped into. True, she hadn't rejected it. The word rang out. The song returned to consciousness alive. But it was only the first chord. Deep inside, under the hull of the station, in structures that are not in three-dimensional geometry, the seal of the second circle awoke. Kayla felt it, like her inner trembling. Something that cannot be explained by instruments. When she returned to the Verity, she was greeted in silence. The crew looked at her differently, as if there was someone else standing behind her, or something. Liran, the pilot of the artificial eyes, was the first to break the silence. "Concordat's ships are approaching. Someone has broken through our encrypted channel. We are not alone." Kayla had changed. She knew what would happen next. There, in the depths of the Concordat Council, new leaders had already emerged, those who wanted order, purged of the old insurance. They bossily rewrote the chronicles of the war, erased Xi from history, removed the word sacrifice from the song. And these leaders, having learned about the station, sent a fleet, not to understand, but to close. At the exit from the house there is a hologram, a woman in a white and gold uniform, an ageless face, a voice without intonation. Commander Kayla Orr, you have violated protocol for neutralizing objects of ancient origin. You are subject to seizure. The station will be destroyed. Kayla glanced out the window. An armada hovered above the station, but she had no doubt. Instead, she activated the transmitter connected to the station's core. Then listen, she said. The word has already been spoken. It will not disappear. Even if you erase the station, it lives in you, in each of you. This is a destabilization of public order, the hologram snapped. No, Kayla said softly. This is the beginning of the current order, one that is not built on fear. At that moment, the song began again, but not as an impulse, but as a voice, spread. Signals began to come in from all sides of the Concordat. Colonists, scientists, the old elite, even representatives of Xi. People began to remember. Some recited the first song. Some recited the particulars of their ancestors' history, the survivors of the shadow. Some sang, not with words, but with intonations born from memory. It was a revolution, not a bloody one, not a military one. It was an explosive consciousness. The fleet did not attack. The commander disappeared from the connection without a word. The weapon had failed. There were no enemies in the song, only I who had heard, and I who was not yet ready. Kayla sat on the bridge floor, tired but calm. She knew she had done the impossible. She hadn't won, but she had reminded. While the station was rotating in silence, another mechanism awoke in its core. A thin flash, and a funnel opened in space. A new one, not like last time. This was the path to the third circle, where not only the past is hidden, but also what has not yet been lived. And Kayla, without hesitation, gave the order. Set a course, beyond the name. What she knew now, a song is not a story. Song is the way, and it's just beginning. The space around the shuttle was distorted, as if the universe was reluctantly pushing its fabrics apart, leading Kale to a passageway where reality had no familiar form. The funnel that opened from the core of the station was not a portal to another place. It was a state, a transition in which the laws of time disappeared and only one thing came to the fore: memory. The crew of the Verity remained in normal reality. Kayla went alone. She could not risk her life because ahead were not just mysteries, but something that even the Song of the Name had not yet encountered. As her shuttle passed through the third circle, the light disappeared. In its place, sensations. She did not see with her eyes. She remembered with her eyes. Everything around her was constructed from the memories of other beings, moments from other lives, unfolding in space like living paintings. Kayla walked across a bridge made of childhood memories from a distant race that had died millions of years ago. Constellations that weren't on star charts burned in the sky. Their shapes resembled symbols rather than alphabets, feelings that could only be experienced. The voice sounded not in the ears, but in essence. You came for the truth. But the truth is a trace left by memory, and you are no longer just a man. She knew that voice. She recognized it immediately. It was him, not faceless, as he was before the name, but him, changed, rewritten, aware of himself. He appeared next to her, not as a figure, but as a presence, soft, transparent, almost familiar. There were no friends in him, only sadness. "Why are you here?" Kayla asked. "Because the song went further than it should have," he said. "You think you've won, but you've only opened a door, and it's not me behind it, not the darkness." "Then who?" He fell silent. Shapes flared in the sky, giant shapes made of myth, beings without form, time, beginning. They were here before anything else, before words. Those who never spoke. The voice trembled. "We thought they were gone. What memory erased them? but they remained, and now they have awakened. Kayla didn't understand the meaning, but when she did, she regretted the pieces. They want to bring back silence. No, they want to absorb everything that dared to speak. They are not enemies, not a personality. They are empty to the point of form. They do not remember, and therefore they hate those who remember. He fell silent, then he added, more quietly, "They cannot be defeated, but they can be held. Secure the song. Make it more than just a memory, a living thing." "How?" Kayla asked. He turned. Before her was a sphere, the same as the one Leia had once found. But this one did not contain a name. It contained a logos, the deep structure of all that was Saeed. You will have to become the song, Kayla, not the bearer, not the keeper, but the essence itself. It is a one-way journey. You will forget who you were, but if you do not, the third will tear the fabric of the word, and everything will start over, but without memory. She looked at the sphere, at the reflection of herself inside, and she remembered how her grandmother whispered to her in childhood. Truth is not knowledge, it is a choice, every day, in every word. She stretched out her hands and took the sphere. In that moment, everything disappeared. A moment later, or an eternity on one of the distant satellites, now K9, a child heard for the first time a voice within himself. A voice that sang, not a song but a meaning, not a word but a way. It was Kayla, and then it became clear. The song is now alive. She's in everyone who remembers, and the darkness will no longer pass silently. 300 years have passed. Orr no longer knew Kayla's name as a name. It had become something more, something that could not be spoken but could be felt, like a glimmer of light passing through a layer of memory. The song was no longer secret knowledge. It had become a living structure of reality, embedded in the consciousness of all sentient beings of the Concordat. The word was no longer transmitted. It was lived, and everyone who was born felt a pulse within them from childhood, soft, inaudible, an echo of the song that had become part of the very fabric of existence. But even that was not the end. On the wreckage of an old planet, long abandoned in a community that was thought to be dead, they made themselves known again. They did not name themselves. They had no forms. They were not born or created. They were called the Thirds, conditionally according to the seals that once provided them beyond the boundaries of observation. They did not speak because they had no words. Their language was destruction. Their logic was erasure. In the place where the stars no longer burned, they deployed their structure, the anti-song network, a mechanism that pumped the very ability to preserve meaning out of space. The first symptoms appeared with the help of careful research. Memories disappeared. People forgot their own names. The columns reported strange illnesses, not physical but semantic. People lived, moved, ate, but not in the same way. For what? Emptiness developed from within, pulled thoughts into silence. The Concordat brought together the Council of Song, not a government, but a union of voices synchronized with logos. They were a family, and everyone felt, for the first time since the lack, something alien was breathing inside the fabric of song. Among them was a young man named Ash Taran. He was born on Myriad, a pilgrim planet where children were taught song from the moment of conception. He was not special. He was a prophet. But one day, in a dream, he heard her voice. "Kayla." "Ash," the voice said. "You carry the song, but you don't know whose it is. It's time to find out." He awoke, burning with heat but his eyes full of vision, not of the world, but of memory, locked in the depths of reality. He saw the third circle. He saw the station. He saw the woman with the silver eyes dissolve into the sphere, becoming structure. He saw who Kayla was, and he knew the song was not only alive, it was waiting to return. But to do that, someone will have to go where no one has gone since Kayla disappeared, into the very heart of the song, into the sound where reality sways like a voice searching for meaning. And I agree. He had spoken Myriad, secretly, at night, without the council's permission. His path led to forgotten coordinates, to where Kayla's vortex had once dissolved into space. But now, Ash felt the vortex open again. Not because Kayla had called, because the third found the entrance. When he reached this sector, he did not see a crater. He saw a crack. Time and space shattered like glass, and through the crack he heard a whisper, not a voice, but the meaning of destruction. He knew this was only the beginning. He closed his eyes and began to sing. The song didn't sound in the opposite world. It vibrated in the fabric of the universe, reminding reality of who it was. It was a reminder, like the first day. And then, from deep within the crater, there was a shape, soft, light, a complex fabric folded from memory. It was not human, but Ash recognized it. "Kayla," he whispered. She didn't answer, but she put her hand on his chest. The song flared into him like a star. Everything that had been forgotten came back. He realized he hadn't come to tell. He had come to accept what Kayla could no longer bear alone. The third ones are not destroyed. They cannot be defeated, but they can be rewritten. Through sacrifice, through appeal, through a name. "Are you ready?" she asked. "If not me, then who?" And they stepped together into the core. In 1,000 systems, at the same moment, children woke up with tears and a song on their lips, not out of fear, but because they remembered. Someone whispered a name no matter what it meant. Someone looked at the sky and felt that the fabric of the world was holding together again. The third one stopped. They didn't disappear, but they retreated for the first time, because now the song sounded not in one, but in many. And in the depths of Logos, where once one soul slept, now two sang. Ash and Kayla, now a single consciousness cobbled together from memory, song, and reason, dissolved into the core. They were no longer just beings. They were a containment structure, the last ring around the core of reality that could hold the third force, not the truth. The core was no longer a vision. It had become the heart of the song itself, a new center of consciousness for the galaxy, where all that had been forgotten was stored, not as dead weight, but as living tissue, helping those who still remembered to remain themselves. And the thirds retreated, not forever, undefeated, but they were stopped, not because someone was holding them, but because the meaning had once again found spring. The words that something they did not have, memory, sacrifice, inner choice, now sounded on all levels of being. The galaxy has changed. The Concordat fell apart, not in a catastrophe, but in a transformation. Humans, Xi, and other species began to build their societies not around law or order, but around the word, each heard differently but roughly the same. There was no longer a need to impose it. Each carried it with them. The song lived, not as a cult, not as a religion, but as the advice of a rational being in its own memory. And with each generation, the voices of the song became quieter but deeper, taking root in children, in dreams, in letters and looks. Sometimes, in the distant corners of the stars, there were those who sought silence again, who wanted to forget, to erase, to start over. They appeared. They tried. But every time they approached the edge, where oblivion resounds, there was already someone standing there. Someone was silent but did not leave. And that was them, Ash, Kayla. Those who became the song. They didn't talk. They didn't learn. They just were, as a reminder that it was important, like a quiet voice inside every being, as a sign that it means always alive, as long as there is someone who is ready to remember it. And when the day comes when words lose their weight again, in which children will not know where the star shines from, in which someone will once again decide to build a world without pain, the song will sound again, "Don't stop," and to return. We were, we are, we will be, until the name is remembered.